Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Rector of University of Teuku, Professor Jasman J. Ma'ruf, Honorable Dean of the Faculty of Public Health, University of Teuku, Professor Darmawi, Honorable all keynote speakers, distinguished guests, and all participants. I would like to thank you for inviting me to be one of speaker in this great event of the third International Conference on Public Health in 2021, held by the Faculty of Public Health, University of Teuku. Please allow me at this moment to share my presentation through this Zoom platform. My talk in this occasion entitled as Antimicrobial Resistance Challenge from Food of Animal Origin to Human Health, Urgent Need for Implementation of One Health Approach. I will divide my presentation into several parts as shown in this general outline, compressing from the basics of antimicrobial and antibiotic to the strategy to control the occurrence of antimicrobial resistance. I'm sure most of us already heard about the word of antimicrobial, or even was mentioned it in many times of their life of using antimicrobial, which is defined as an agent that kills microorganisms or stop their growth. Antimicrobial itself can be divided into 4 different types. There are antibiotics or antibacterials, antivirals, antiparasitic agents, and antifungals. In this presentation, I will focus on the first type of antimicrobial, that is the antibiotics or the antibacterial. The word of antibiotic was derived from the Greek roots or the Greek word, which mean opposing life, or against life. It is come from the biological concept of survival of the fittest, in which one organism can destroy another to preserve themselves. The substance of antibiotic produced by microorganism, as they have the capacity of inhibiting the growth and even of destroying other microorganisms. This substance can be produced by several biological agents, such as bacteria, fungi, or mold. Antibiotic was discovered accidentally by one of the laboratory worker or the expert in the health sector. That is Sir Alexander Fleming. In 1928, he was accidentally found the work of first candidate of antibiotics, which called penicillin, in his lab. And since its first finding and developed, now the antibiotic was used in many sectors and also used in human and animal to fight bacterial infection. Then, following the development of many types of antibiotic and the use of this type of drug, There is also another issue that exists and occur nowadays, which called as antimicrobial resistance. It is the occurrence when bacteria, virus, fungi, and parasites change over time and no longer respond to medicines, making infection harder to treat and increasing the risk of disease spread, even severe illness and death. How the antimicrobial resistance could happen? Let's imagine based on these infographics pictures. In our body, we have a lot of germs or bacteria. Some of them could be drug resistant, which is here in this figure represent as a red color, with red color. Then we can sometimes we use antibiotics to kill the bacteria that we assume they are bad bacteria that causing infection in our body. However, it might happen as well. The antibiotic kill good bacteria too in our body, which actually this good bacteria we need to protect our body from infection. Unfortunately, after we use the antibiotic, the number of these good bacteria reduced because the antibiotic was kill or inhibit the development or multiplication. Then, because of this situation, because this effect of the drug, it caused many of good bacteria kill, and it left the drug-resistant bacteria that take over to grow in our body, and then of course might cause health problem. Even some resistant bacteria and some bacteria that drug resistant, they transmit this drug resistant to other bacteria, and of course this might cause more problem in our body because they grow and increase the number of drug-resistant bacteria, which means we can cure our the infection that happen in our body because no drug able to kill the agent that cause the infection in our body. The occurrence of antibiotic resistance actually was for a long time already identified. It's almost similar when the time of the penicillin was found. It was the penicillin itself was found resistant when it's still in limited use prior to widespread usage in 1943. And then when the new antibiotic introduced, the resistance also exists either in 1 or 2 years after the finding or introduced or several years after that. So as many as in the finding of new antibiotic, then the resistance also follow the drug resistance also follow with the finding of new antibiotic. So nowadays the difficulties is to find the new antibiotic developed since many of them already resistant, and the use of antibiotic cannot be controlled from using in human, which also used in animal, that cause another complicated problem in the future. Based on the review wrote by Leventola in Pharmaceutical and Therapeutics Journal, it was mentioned that the cause of antimicrobial resistant case in general, the result of overuse and then the inappropriate prescribing, as well as extensive agricultural use. It has been proved by epidemiological studies that a direct relationship was found between antibiotic consumption and the emergence and dissemination of resistant bacteria strain. Then, in the other situation, the antibiotic was prescribed incorrectly, which also support the happening or the occurrence of increased case of resistant bacteria. Studies have shown that treatment indication, choice of agent, or duration of antibiotic therapy is incorrect in 30% to 50% of cases. Then, in using an agricultural sector, it was found both in developed and developing world, the antibiotics were widely used as growth supplement in livestock. It was estimated that at 80% of antibiotics sold in the US are used in animals. And in particular, this drug was used to promote growth and prevent infection. Actually, the expectation by treating livestock with antimicrobials is to improve the overall health of the animals, producing a larger yields and a higher quality product. But it might also result in vice versa. In general, there are 6 factors that are responsible for the occurrence of antimicrobial resistance. They are, for example, they are overprescribing of antibiotics, which means some practitioners could give or treat their patient always with, very often with antibiotic, although the infection or disease doesn't need to use antibiotic to cure the infection. Then, when the patient given or treated with antibiotic, there is also possible the patient not take all the antibiotic given for the treatment, and this also could cause the occurrence of antimicrobial resistance. And then, another situation regarding the facilities of health facilities that poor in infection control can increase number of germ or bacteria, and then they could also resistant to the antibiotic. Then, furthermore, it could also happen because of lack of hygiene and poor sanitation, both in public facilities as well as at home of the infectious person. And then, in another case, at farm level, it's also possible the antimicrobial resistance occur because of the overuse of antibiotic in livestock and fish farming, for example, for growth promoter. And all of this situation also challenge with the lack of new antibiotic being developed. So we can obtain the new antibiotic in a very short time because most of them already resistant. In this presentation, in this for the presentation of my presentation, we will focus or talk on the use of antibiotic in food of animal origin. How the food from animal origin could transmit the resistance to human. It can be illustrated by a simple explanation. Before, I have mentioned that the antibiotic largely used in livestock animal, and even the use of this antibiotic might not use judicious. So there might be related with the dose of treatment, the length of treatment, so the appropriate use of antibiotic appropriate with the disease diagnosis. So if it's not used judiciously, then the livestock may experience the antimicrobial resistance or antibiotic resistance. Then the product from this livestock or this livestock can be interact with the environment and human, since human eat the product from livestock. So when they consume the product that already contain resistant bacteria, and they can be also affected with the antimicrobial resistance in the body, including they can have a residue from using antibiotic. This case of the transfer of resistant bacteria to human by farm animals was a long time ago, has been known. It's about 35 years ago, when high rates of antibiotic resistance were found in the intestinal flora of both farm animals and farmers. So there are an association or correlation between the bacteria that resistant and found in farm animals and as well as in farmers. It is also similar. It was found in our study, which I will show you in the next few slides. The proof of this correlation between the antimicrobial resistance in animal and then transfer to human, has been proved through molecular detection method that demonstrate that the resistant bacteria in farm animals are consumers through their meat product, for example. How this could occur? The following sequence could explain how it was happened. The antibiotic used in food-producing animals kills or suppress susceptible bacteria, and then they will allow antibiotic-resistant bacteria to thrive. So similar story that I will show you in the first infographic picture. And then the resistant bacteria can be transmitted to human through the food supply. So either they ingested or they use with for other purposes. This bacteria can cause infection in humans that, of course, furthermore, it might result in adverse health consequences. Even it can spread to other population or to other humans. Furthermore, the agricultural use of antibiotic could also affect the environmental microbiome. Up to 90% of the antibiotic given to livestock are excreted in urine and stool, then widely dispersed through fertilizer, groundwater, and surface runoff. So it's really what affects the environmental area surrounding the livestock farming that receive antibiotic treatment. Surprisingly, in some countries, the antibiotics such as tetracycline and streptomycin are sprayed on fruit trees to act as pesticide. Although this way of application is not very widely applied, but it could result in the spread in the large geographical area. So we have to put attention as well on this issue. And of course, this practice could also contribute to the exposure of microorganisms in the environment to growth inhibiting agent, and then change the environmental ecology by increasing the proportion of resistant versus susceptible microorganisms. This figure shows us of how the antibiotic resistance can spread from animal to human and result in fatal condition. It reflects the possible pathway of transmission from farm to the table. For example, here, the animal that's given antibiotic, then the good bacteria kill, but the resistant bacteria can survive. And of course, this also the animals can carry harmful bacteria in their intestine. Then the resistant bacteria can spread to the product, the animal product, to plant production, or to the food that prepare, or through the feces that spread to the environment surrounding area. Then the people that exposed to this situation or to this environment, then they might get sick with, because of resistant infection, either from contaminated food that result in or contaminated environment that resulting them or affecting them with infection. And the further impact might cause the from mid illness to severe illness to the human that already contaminated with the resistant bacteria. The antimicrobial resistance itself could also spread to the environment, both in land or water. So it can be by using in livestock animal and also to aquatic animals, and then could contaminate plant as well as human that consume their product. And the water could affect the or could aid the spread of resistant bacteria to other environment, including the drinking water. Let's keep this. When we look for the threat of antimicrobial resistance in livestock, from the study conducted by Van Boekel et al., it was found the possibility of increase of antimicrobial use in the world in the next 10 years. For example, from this group estimation, in 2010, the number of antimicrobial use was at 63,000 tons. And it was predicted in 2030, the number of antimicrobial use might increase to more than 105,000 tons. So if we subtract this number, we found that the increase from 2010 to 2030 about 42,000 tons, or similar to 65% increase as compared to year 2010. Among of the 67% of antimicrobial use are estimated will be used to livestock animal or production animals at a number of 73%. It is a large number increase of using antimicrobial in livestock animals in the next 10 years, 20 years, or in the next 10 years. Specifically in Southeast Asia, it was predicted that 3 countries might use more than 100%, might increase the use of antimicrobial above 100%. There, Myanmar is the highest, then Indonesia at 202%, and then Vietnam at 152%. Mainly, most of the antimicrobial Indonesia or in Southeast Asia used for poultry sector. It is also the popular meat that consumed by many people in the world, or specifically in Southeast Asia. Our study also showed that in the cattle farm, the threat of antimicrobial resistance or specifically antibiotic resistance also exists. We were test the sensitivity of antibiotic to E. coli bacteria. The bacteria was isolated from cattle fecal sample and hand swab of farm workers and water in surrounding cattle house. We found that 100% of E. coli bacteria resistant to streptomycin, clindamycin, and erythromycin. A further study, we look for the pathogen E. coli 0157H7 to test also on the resistance. We found that from the E. coli obtained from cattle fecal sample, it was the bacteria was this pathogen bacteria was resistant to tetracycline, clindamycin, oxytetracycline, oxacillin, ampicillin, sulbactam, and erythromycin. So both the general E. coli and pathogen E. coli, it also show the similar trait of bacteria of antibiotic resistance. Now we also running an ongoing research to further look of the antibiotic resistance in food of animal origin, such as in poultry product, for example, in chicken meat in the wet market. We have started this study to look of how a large number of sample might be resistant, might have bacteria that resistant to 12 type of antibiotic that might use in the field. The result of the study is still waiting. We are still testing. We are still running several processes to obtain the final result, including we want to identify the gene that related with this resistance. In addition to poultry and cattle product, we also found some publication in Indonesia that report the antimicrobial resistance in shrimp product. That is the antibiotic that are resistant to Vibrio parahemolyticus from Vietnamese shrimp. From this study, it was found that 100% of bacteria isolate of Vibrio parahemolyticus were resistant to streptomycin and 90% resistant to erythromycin, and then also to amoxicillin, nitrofurantoin, and then also some of them were used ciprofloxacin and chloramphenicol, which actually already banned or prohibited to be used in aquatic animals. The bacteria that resistant to antimicrobial also found in other many locations, including municipal sewage, wastewater treatment plant, and soil, and also in the rivers through many way of of a supply of resistant bacteria. Another threat that might be found in the field that cause the antimicrobial resistance is the use of chicken litter based organic fertilizers in the presence of antimicrobial resistant pathogen that it is considered as a serious environmental hazard, as the spread of fertilizers on pasture could contaminate groundwater source and land that might facilitate the transmission of antimicrobial resistant pathogen to other animal species and human. If this situation cannot be controlled appropriately, this might result in the bad situation. This might threaten the health and economic in the world. So it is predicted when we can control or fail to address the problem of antibiotic resistance, then it will result about 10 million deaths per year by 2050, and it cost economic cost about $100 trillion if we fail to control the spread of antimicrobial resistant case. So can we control the antimicrobial resistance? How we can do that? For veterinarian, it has been suggested that we need to prescribe and dispense antibiotic for animal under our care and only if necessary. So when the infection not really need to use antibiotic, so we can use another alternative, including using herbal medicine, which we assume or we believe less side effect. And then we also suggest the veterinarian, the OIE, also suggests the veterinarian to conduct antimicrobial sensitivity testing before prescribing or administering an antibiotic to make sure that the animal is still sensitive to the antibiotic used for the treatment. And the third is to educate animal owners on the risks associated with misuse of antibiotic. So we need to explain to them, we need to describe to them what will happen to the people when they consume the product from that's contaminated with antibiotic resistant bacteria. And also we can explain to them this also treat their own family in the future. The fourth is to promote sound animal husbandry hygiene method, vaccination strategies, and periodically review farm record to ensure compliance with your prescription or with veterinarian prescription. And last but not least, the IA encourage veterinarian to keep their own knowledge on antibiotic use recommendation that's up to date. Another alternative that's comprehensive in controlling the antimicrobial resistance is to implement antimicrobial stewardship or AMS. It is the systematic effort to educate and persuade prescribers of antimicrobials to follow evidence-based prescribing in order to stem antibiotic overuse and thus antimicrobial resistance. It can be conducted with a good strategy and step-by-step planning, including record and planning, and then daily farm management using biosecurity. The implementation of antimicrobial stewardship itself also related with the One Health approach. One Health itself is defined as a collaborative, multi-sectoral, and transdisciplinary approach that's working at the local, regional, national, and global levels with the goal of achieving optimal health outcome recognizing the interconnection between people, animals, plants, and the shared environment. So when we think about antimicrobial stewardship, it is also related with the One Health approach. Since we manage the people under the AMS to understand and to obey with the protocol we develop to control the use of antimicrobial. Nowadays, many countries and some international agencies have included a One Health approach within their action plan to address antimicrobial resistance. So it is necessary to act that include improvement in antimicrobial use regulation and policy, surveillance, as well as antimicrobial stewardship to support the control strategy of antimicrobial resistance. I think this already explained in the former part of my presentation, so skip this. So what's a recommendation we could give to support the strategy and strengthen implementation of AMS, especially as an effort to control AMR from production animals? Of course, we recommend to increase awareness of all stakeholders of using antibiotic, and as well as understanding of antimicrobial resistance. And the veterinarian that work in the field need to supervise to all related stakeholders to use antibiotic judiciously and carefully. And we need to provide education about antimicrobial stewardship and promote the implementation of it to the owners, animal keepers, and farm workers. And also, we need to encourage professional organization to support the encourage of implementation of antimicrobial resistance in many veterinary sectors. Indonesia itself, the government already issued several regulations regarding the use of drug, including use of antibiotic, both in livestock sector and also in fishery or aquatic animals. So it hope could control further on the use of antibiotic inappropriately in the field, both in livestock sector and fishery or aquatic animals. From our side, we are trying to support the government program or the national program of antimicrobial resistance control planning through conducting some activities under small grant, Sihun to 2020 small grant program. Under this program, we propose the implementation of workshop on development of guidance materials for veterinary antimicrobial stewardship program to strengthen One Health coordination and control strategies for AMR in Indonesia. We work with several different professional background as well as a skill. Yeah. The project, the goal of this project was to provide assistance for Indonesia's strategy in controlling antimicrobial resistance based on veterinary support. The project objective is to develop guidance materials for antimicrobial stewardship, a program in veterinary practice in Indonesia, and to conduct workshop on dissemination of antimicrobial stewardship program in veterinary practice. From this activity, we already obtained 2 final products. They are guideline materials in electronic format, and we also developed website for AMS program dissemination. This is the example of the product of a guidance material or guideline material we develop, and everyone can obtain this from this website. So if you go to this website, then you can find the electronic format or electronic version of this guideline material, all of them in Indonesian language, with the support from CEOHUN and SAID, and also from Universitas Kuala. And to disseminate this product, we also already conducted the workshop, a national workshop, virtually on 5th September 2021. So that's it from me to share with you about the antimicrobial resistance and antimicrobial stewardship, as well as the threat from food of animal origin to human health, and how we can act together to control this threat in the future. Thank you very much. I would like to thank especially to the coordinating committee of the Z International Conference on Public Health, and also to Dean of Faculty of Public Health of University of Teuku, Professor Dr. Hewan Darmawi, MSc. Thank you very much.